However, Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré recently survived a serious assassination attempt. Russian special forces have now arrived in the country to ensure his protection. But why did Russia intervene at such a sensitive time? Are the two countries facing a common enemy? Let's explore this point. Burkina Faso's political situation has become extremely unstable. President Traoré faces multiple direct threats to his life and authority. A large-scale coup attempt further exposed the true instability of the situation. In response, President Traoré took bold measures. He approved the deployment of Russian special forces to protect his leadership and key government members. This unexpected decision highlights changes in the country's international alliances and shows how far Traoré will go to protect his country from both domestic and foreign enemies. Since seizing power in September 2022, Traoré has faced constant pressure from both inside and outside the country. Rebel groups continue to operate almost unchallenged in the Sahel region, turning Burkina Faso into a hotbed of violence and instability. These armed groups are expanding their influence across West Africa, making Burkina Faso's political vulnerability one of their main targets. Domestically, Traoré's leadership has been criticized by the military and political elite. These forces have repeatedly attempted coups, with the April 2025 coup attempt being the most serious threat so far. According to media reports, this coup was meticulously planned and involved active military personnel and key officials. Military personnel were involved in coordination with extremist groups. Their goal was a direct attack on the presidential palace, which was built by Traoré. Not only do we have to take control of the system that has been raised, but we also need to dismantle the entire structure from the manipulation of the coup d'etat that was aimed at Burkina Faso. Foreign interested parties seeking to exert influence on Soviet strategic resources. A network of conspirators, including those who are known to be connected to this attempt, was thwarted, but it became clear that Traoré, one of the serious attempts to remove the president from power. Recognizing the severity of the threat, Traoré acted quickly and to protect his own mentor of the Russian special forces, which is synonymous with maintaining the stability of the state. Dispatch is a calculated decision driven by urgency. High risk. These elite units, trained to deal with security scenarios, are the president with the sole task of ensuring the safety of the government and maintaining the integrity of the government. Deployment of Russian troops to Burkina Faso marks a new chapter in the country's defense strategy and the strategic relationship between the two countries. These Russian special forces, which are suggesting evolution, are far more than the iconic guards. They are the honorifics of the government. Exchange critical infrastructure enhancement and military expertise to the security forces of Burkina Faso. Their main task is to work with President Tiger and the honorific of the chief advisor. Their strategic deployment is further assassination, neutralize all threats, both political and military, quickly. The main aspect of their mission is the training of Burkina Faso's army. Russia's special forces are training against insurgent threats, tactics essential for identifying and neutralizing internal sabotage, sharing skills and surveillance techniques against heavy artillery. Practical cooperation has steadily strengthened Burkina Faso's security system, improved ability to respond to current and future threats. Practical support cooperation symbolizes the deepening of the alliance between Burkina Faso and Russia. The decision of deploying Russian troops also symbolizes this. This decision represents a major shift in Burkina Faso's foreign policy, indicating a shift from traditional relationship with Western countries, particularly France. Burkina Faso has been part of France's grand terrorism strategy in the Sahel region. Security has relied heavily on French military. However, the relationship has deteriorated. President Flo's administration sees France's presence as a hindrance, growing dissatisfaction with Western interference. France's recent military withdrawal from the region, especially Mali. This withdrawal has driven Burkina Faso to seek new allies. Russia has been swift and proactive. Unlike many Western countries that have actively intervened and attached political conditions to military support, Russia has expressed its position as a reliable partner to African countries seeking independence from Western influence, and Moscow has made its position clear as a trustworthy partner. Moscow's involvement in Burkina Faso is not limited to the protection of Tula, but this is a long-term strategy to build lasting influence in the region. Russia is consolidating its position in the Sahel region as Western countries withdraw, providing weapon training and direct military support to countries strictly committed to Western commitments. For Russia, Burkina Faso is a gateway to expand influence across all of West Africa. In supporting the Traoré regime, Moscow not only establishes itself as a security ally, but also as a regional power in the fight against rebellion and foreign intervention. This solidifies its position as a regional power in the struggle. The deployment of Russian troops is an important step in strengthening Troy's position, but the overall picture is still unclear. Burkina Faso remains trapped in a dangerous loop of extremist violence and regular insecurity. The next few months will test whether this new partnership can truly bring stability, but one thing is certain: the geopolitical conditions in the Sahel are changing and Russia is firmly now part of it, which is a significant change. The intervention of the Russian military is a turning point in the walk of Burkina Faso, and the country is beginning to redefine its own security guarantees and its own position on the world stage. This raises important questions. That Russia really wants to keep Troy safe? If so, why not leave a comment in the field and add your voice to the full liberation of Africa? Please watch more informative videos like this one. If you want to, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Pivoting Burkina Faso to Russia is just an urgent strategy. It's not a problem, but it reflects a broader geopolitical stance. Burkina Faso is due to the influence of Western countries, especially former colonies like France. It's surprising that we choose Russia as an ally. Because we are actively distancing ourselves, it may seem that there are common interests, especially the interference and removal of Western countries. If you look through a lens that is called the common opposite, it is better. A major factor in this strengthening of the partnership is that Western countries, especially France, Burkina Faso has disappointed 22 years to IRA since Captain Ibrahim Traoré became a mentor in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso, the Soviet Union, has been hit by repeated coup attempts, many of which are foreign, and many people associated with Western-backed factions within the military. The West, especially France, is not a true partnership operation, which has become synonymous with political manipulation and neo-colonial domination. France's long-standing military intervention in the region was due to the insurgents. It was supposed to help fight against the enemy, but instead of improving security, many people in Burkina Faso, who have often exacerbated tensions. The presence of the French army is not a supportive ally but an occupying force. The realization that these efforts have failed only deepens the distrust. In contrast, Russia presents itself as a more reliable ally. This has provided practical military support without seeking political information. The unconditional approach is like Troy claiming independence and defending sovereignty. It is very attractive to leaders who are focused on the Russian will attitude of working together as an equal partner, not as an imposing advantage. This is in stark contrast to the attitude of the West. In addition, Burkina Faso and Russia share a common adversary. Western countries often derive their intellectual and academic interests from democratism, human rights, and humanitarianism, but many African leaders try to cover it up with words. These words no longer have any meaning in African countries, and exploiting its resources. Russia is a global counterweight to Western domination and establishing a close relationship with Russia in Africa. We support a new political order that respects the autonomy of Burkina Faso, doesn't stop at getting military support. It's sending a bold message to the West, and Africa no longer wants to be dominated by the former colonial powers. This is also driven by economic and strategic considerations. Russia is expanding its influence across Africa. Military training, resources, and mining infrastructure development. Burkina Faso, rich in natural resources, especially gold, sees Russia's involvement as a chance to use its wealth for national development, not foreign interests. Russia positions itself as an alternative to Western economic dominance in resource-rich countries. For Burkina Faso, this means less reliance on Western aid and finance, plus major investments in industry, energy, and infrastructure. Beyond economics, this partnership reflects African nations' desire to reclaim their identity and break free from colonial shadows. It tells a story of deep longing for true independence. Russia's historical stance against Western imperialism makes it an appealing partner for countries seeking real sovereignty. While Russia's foreign policy isn't above criticism, it presents itself as respecting African independence and offering support without hidden agendas. Unlike Western aid, this view resonates with nations like Burkina Faso, still struggling with colonial legacies and ongoing interference from former imperial powers. However, the Russia partnership isn't just ideological, it's about survival. Burkina Faso, like many Sahel countries, faces rebel threats with little effective support from traditional Western allies. The government confronts a severe security crisis. Russia is seen as a crucial ally, providing political and military aid without conditions. Moscow's stance is appealing to Captain Ibrahim Traoré, whose government views this alliance as vital for stability. The growing Russian military presence in Burkina Faso signals broader changes in the Sahel region's dynamics as Western nations, led by France, withdraw due to rising anti-colonial sentiment and grassroots resistance. Russia aims to fill this void. Burkina Faso shift may inspire other African nations seeking to reduce Western dependence. This could lead to more African countries aligning with Russia and China, potentially shifting global influence away from the West, marking a larger continental realignment. Despite thwarting recent coups with Russian support, President Traoré's position remains unstable. Security issues persist, and the struggle for control continues. Rebellion, conflict, and international scrutiny complicate matters, keeping Traoré's government in a precarious state. The key question is whether Traoré can build on his successes or if challenges will ultimately determine Burkina Faso's future. This could overwhelm their efforts. One pressing challenge for Traoré's regime is the Sahel region, where rebel groups pose a persistent threat in the country. Attacks on civilians and government have surged, forcing over 1 million to flee. These extremist activities are a major issue for PM Traoré's government. Traoré faces key challenges as PM, including political respect and support for anti-rebel efforts. He's deployed Russian special forces. However, the long-term impact of this foreign intervention remains unclear. Russia provides immediate protection and strategic military support, but Burkina Faso security can't rely solely on external aid. The government must address root causes of extremism: lack of infrastructure, limited economy, and weak governance in vulnerable areas. Equally important is national unity. Since taking power, Traoré has worked to unite political elites, military, civil society, and others. We have faced strong resistance from the internal divisions that have led to the soaring cost of living and the collapse of essential goods and services in areas plagued by violence. Economic difficulties are making it even worse because Traoré is a former country in the United States and Europe, and the United States, although it has garnered support from a section of the population that has become disillusioned with the regime, we are still struggling to gain the trust of the public as a whole, and this problem is political. A history of military coups in Burkina Faso that promote instability. This pattern is getting worse and worse, and the government trust is still fragile, especially within the military. Frequent power struggles. 2025 coup d'état, the attempted murder, tells the story of this reality, and Traoré is trying to seize power despite the various measures taken. The threat of future rebellion remains. Maintain the loyalty of elite military units, especially the presidential guard. While it is essential, cohesion within the military is far from guaranteed. On the other hand, the country's economic situation is another major obstacle to violence. The intensification has severely hampered economic development and disrupted key industries such as agriculture and industry. Burkina Faso, which is on the verge of collapse, is rich in gold, and gold is a pillar of the economy. Increasingly important is corruption and mismanagement. The controversy is whether these resources are really in the interest of the people. Questionable to the Burkina Faso government headed by President Traoré. Unlocking the full potential of these natural resources is a great way to get the most out of them. It is crucial that governments ensure the country's wealth is used to promote long-term development and does not fall prey to exploitation by foreign powers. In this situation, Russia's increased involvement could bring economic benefits, especially in terms of industrial revitalization and expanded investment opportunities. Russia has shown strong interest in Africa's natural resources, and its growing influence in Burkina Faso could lead to increased investment and support for critical infrastructure development. However, this partnership will require the government of Burkina Faso, led by President Traoré, to respond cautiously. Russia's support has the potential to bring economic benefits, but President Traoré must ensure that the management of Burkina Faso's wealth remains the backbone of the state. Burkina Faso has a long history of foreign resource exploitation, and the risk of falling into a new cycle of dependence and domination remains high in the international community. Deepening ties between Traoré and Russia is not without potential repercussions. Moscow provides military support and a counterweight to Western influence, but the broader intellectual and scientific impact of this alliance is significant. Western countries, especially France, have expressed concern about Burkina Faso's inclination toward Russia and criticized Traoré for embracing a country with its own strategic interests in Africa. As China and Russia expand their influence on the African continent, the global balance is shifting, and Middle and Western countries are reassessing their role in the Sahel region. Burkina Faso's decision to distance from France may deepen isolation, especially from Western nations, if aid and investment dry up, further isolating them diplomatically. PM Traoré must balance using Russian support While maintaining Western ties, he'll need to walk a tightrope preserving diplomatic routes with Western countries. Burkina Faso still relies on international aid for economic recovery and development, however, amid growing challenges. Burkina Faso has a chance to become a stronger, more self-reliant nation. The Traoré government must prioritize reforms that directly benefit the people. Commitment to jobs, infrastructure, and human rights is key to lasting public support and addressing root causes of instability. These must be central to the strategy. While maintaining sovereignty, constructive engagement with both emerging and established nations is crucial for long-term peace and prosperity. What's your take? Will Traoré's strategy save Burkina Faso and ensure its survival? Or is he leading the country into dangerous waters? Share your thoughts in the comments. Can anyone topple Traoré? Let us know what you think in the comments below. We explore Africa's rich history, culture, and ongoing sovereignty struggles. Subscribe to join this important dialogue by registering. You're not just getting info, but joining a movement to restore Africa's rightful place on the world stage. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any episodes. Let's team up to spread knowledge and drive change. Thanks for watching.